Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes. If you can go ahead and take some time and drop in the chat where you're calling from. We'd love to see where some of the audience is calling from. I know we've gotten quite a bit of people calling in from the US area, but had some last time outside of US. While we're waiting for others to join, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with a little song.
In the world of software, I'm the one that they call the asset manager, the keeper of the code and all. Dealing with licenses, contracts, and all this crap. But there's a lesson here, let me unwrap. You see, this job ain't just about the zeros and ones. It's about the lessons that life surely stuns. Managing assets, it's a twisted game for sure, but it teaches you to handle life's allure. Every license is like a piece of your soul. You gotta keep track, make sure it's under control. The chaos of vendors, it can drive you insane.
All right, let's go ahead and stop this now. All right, so I've got some Washington State, love it. Arizona. So someone said, nice song. This is a song that one of our fellow ITAM SCs kind of created using AI. I dropped the link in the chat if you're interested, but it really goes into the pain points and struggles that we hear all the time around asset management. I thought it was cute, and we'll kind of theme that as our song from this point on. So let me jump into my slide presentation. Hi, Jem. Nice to meet you from Michigan. That's awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're a few minutes past. So for most of y'all that have already been part of these sessions, you're really familiar with these really being held with Rich and myself. Last month, I was out on vacation. I was out enjoying the mountains, getting some much needed rest in. And Rich held down the fort, and then we invited over a special guest at that time, which was Will, and they went in through discovery and asset management and that better together story. Well, today Rich is out enjoying himself. We'll see what he's doing in the next slide. But we have a great, exciting guest here with us, Victor. Victor, do you want to introduce yourself and give some background?
Of course. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Michelle, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all today. My name is Victor Paredes Colonia. I'm a director of outbound product management here at ServiceNow. I work in the product management space, a lot of times working with our customers directly on enablement, customer adoption, and just ensuring that our customers get the best value out of our solutions. In a prior life, I did a lot of software license compliance audits. So I was kind of the bad guy in the room doing a lot of the audit compliance work. But now I've kind of seen the light, right, so to speak. I've done software asset management consulting, and I've helped customers evaluate tool sets in this space. So I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about the topic today.
So, yeah, sometimes when we're in a room together and Victor introduces himself and talks about his past life, we kind of hear the boos go around, and then he says he's seen the light, right? So he's definitely on our side now, and he gives a great perspective on how to prevent yourself from, going through some of those audits, right? So I promised to let you know where Rich was, since he's not here today. He's actually at one of our ServiceNow events around Gen AI. We're doing some, it looks like a car show. So he wanted me to let everybody know that he says hello and to enjoy a glass of wine on him. So he will be back on our next session, and we'll kind of talk about what next session looks like. Safe harbor notice, as we always talk about any functionality that we talk about, roadmap sessions or in the future, just be aware that they are forward-looking statements. This is what our agenda looks like today. So we will be talking about why it's important to manage SaaS licenses, managing them in the same place you're managing all of your IT assets and how important that is, how to integrate those SaaS products. I'll take you through a demonstration of a live demonstration of integrating a Zoom account into ServiceNow, just to show you the ease of doing those integrations. And then we'll talk about how can we identify and detect those SaaS products that people are using that you don't know about. Shadow IT is a huge obstacle that we're constantly trying to overcome, and we have some functionality that we can help you in that space. Then we'll drop the recording. We'll open it up for sessions for you to come off and talk with us, or to ask questions in the Q&A section as well. So just briefly, why we started this webinar series. Rich and I are been practitioners, really understand the need to continue to support those practitioners out there. There's a lot of functionality and features that come within SAM and HAM, and sometimes it's hard to keep up. So we thought it would be very interesting and supporting you around those features and really kind of diving into them and helping you to make sure that you're maturing on the platform. This is our next session that we'll be doing. If you want to go ahead and scan the barcode here or the QR code here, I'll also have another slide at the end where you can scan it. But our next session will be around mapping, the indoor mapping functionality within HAM. I'm extremely excited about that session. When we talk about asset management, what you'll hear me say quite a lot is people, process, and technology, right? So the technology is going to help you to stay in compliance, help you optimize those licenses, help you to identify what's out there and being used through an automation fashion. But if you don't have the people and the process standing behind that, the technology will not, it's not going to get you any further, right? So you want to make sure that you're aware of what your processes are. You want to constantly evaluate those, making sure that you're going out and you're vetting that information, you're identifying it for any gaps or risks that you might have out there, and then tweaking it over time. So asset management's not, I heard somebody say it earlier, asset management is not a project where it's one and done. It's a process that's going to be going on over time. And I forgot to talk about my wine. So same line, Victor. I'm trying to, Victor's probably going, when is she going to do the wine session? So
I was thinking that actually. I was like, do you have a slide for it, or what happened?
Yeah, it was, so let's go back. It was this session. So the wine that I picked is Prima Mazzo, which is an Italian wine. It's a peach white. So I kind of went with a theme. Victor was kind of throwing in my face. He might pick something from Italy, but unfortunately he's in the office, so he can't get away with drinking like I can. So I'm going to go ahead and try this out. And Victor, just so you know, I do it in a sippy cup because I don't want to make a mess all over my wood floor.
Oh, good.
So.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, the wine that I was telling Michelle about, I went on vacation in May. We went to Italy, and we went to the Tuscan region, and I fell in love with this little, it was like a family winery, and they grow a small patch of Cabernet Franc, right? They normally do Sangiovese wine. It's all red wine, but they have a small patch of Cabernet Franc. And I love that one so much that I bought a small little case, and I got it shipped to my house and arrived last week. And I was really debating whether I'm going to open one of those for this session, but it just so happened that I'm in the office today. So it'll be coffee for me.
Hey, you got a drink, so that's a good thing. Next time when you do open it, make sure you take a picture, and we'll bring you back in and have you tell us how you liked it.
I'll help you to do that.
Yeah, I really enjoy this peach. As anybody knows that's joined the call, I'm not a big wine drinker. I'm learning how to become a wine drinker. I probably should be drinking tequila because my throat is really dry. But we'll keep it just to the wine like we normally do. I don't want to rename this whole session. So why is it important to manage SaaS? There's a lot of reasons, and one thing one obstacle I hear a lot is, well, individuals don't have access to a SaaS product unless they have a subscription. So there's no compliance concerns, right? Like, if they're paying for it, we're compliant, we're good to go. Why do I care? And that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of reasons, and I actually used Chat GTP to help me kind of come up with some of these reasons. But as I was reading through, I was like, I never really thought about it in all these functionalities. But cost control and optimization, I hear day in and day out. How can I make sure I'm saving money and being aware of what we're spending out there, right? So that's usually one that a lot of people hear about. The second one is compliance and legal protection. Well, this can kind of go into some of those SaaS products that give you free licenses, but it's not a free license that's maybe able to be used within a corporate account. But your users are out there using your domain to create these subscriptions, right? It can come back to bite you. I've actually had this happen in my prior experience where I had a vendor reach out to me and said, provided me with a list, and the list was at least 30 to 50 individuals that were using our domain, but using a free license against the domain. So it was something I wasn't aware of. Shortly became aware of it, and we worked to get in compliance. Security and risk. The thing about that is these SaaS products that they're using, most likely they're putting some kind of data into them, right? This could be proprietary information specific to your company. It might be personal identification information, which I sure hope not, but lots of information that could cause a risk to your company. So you want to make sure you're aware of, what that is, what your terms and conditions are with them. Operational efficiency goes hand in hand. You can be faster if you know what's out there and you're managing it. Scaling and flexibility, improving decision making. This will go into some of the demonstration I'm going to talk about, but what if they want to go out and they want to purchase a webinar, WebEx, a license for WebEx, but you already have Zoom and you already have Teams and you maybe have a couple other out there. When you know what you're already managing, it becomes easier to drive those individuals to the specific products that you're managing. And then employee satisfaction and productivity, being able to get what they need faster. The only way to do that is ultimately being able to be aware of what's out there, so that way you can source it and give it to them quicker. Victor, anything you want to add to this? Anything else you could think of?
Yeah, as you're talking through this, one of the things I was thinking about is the elephant in the room is that software is evolving, right? You have on-premise software that will never go away. That's part of business day to day, but there is a component of software that says it's easier to put things on the cloud. It's more efficient for organizations to not have to manage all the infrastructure to support software. And so as you're thinking about SAM, you want to also think about what is the evolution of software? How is that taking place? And SaaS is one of those areas, right? One of those domains. So SaaS license management it's going to be here for a long amount of time. And so it's just part of that natural evolution of software that you want to keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah, it's really taken off. And I don't see it going backwards, right? So
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Did you want to take over this one, Rich? Saying Rich.
Yeah.
Victor?
Yeah, happy to.
All
Yeah.
right.
So this is an illustration of what our organizations and companies that we work with and individuals such as yourselves probably have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, which is managing assets in all different types of estates, right? Whether it is on-prem in the data center or end user compute world, or if it is in the cloud, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. The fact of the matter is that you have to manage assets with limited number of resources and with limited visibility into the different teams that work in those domains. And so the natural thing to do here is to be able to manage all of that in one single pane of glass. And ServiceNow is really key on that because we're giving our customers a single platform, a single data architecture, and a single data model so that you can achieve those outcomes in the different estates. And the nice thing about it is as you're working in those different estates, there's different workflows and changes you do in one asset domain will be reflected in other asset domains. So you're going to have trustworthy data, but you're also going to have real-time data changes across those different domains. And so for SaaS, one of the things that we say is that you want your SaaS tool to be able to handle your biggest use cases. Oftentimes that means looking at your biggest spend and your biggest publishers, which from what we've gathered and what we've studied from customers, it really boils down to Microsoft, Salesforce, and Adobe really being those key vendors that have a lot of SaaS, or in this case, hybrid SaaS installation data. And so you want your SaaS tool to not only be able to discover and identify the subscriptions, but also do analysis around consumption, usage, and being able to give you some optimized recommendations, right? So we have a lot of that in our solution today. I guess by a show of hands, or folks in the room with us today, does that resonate with you all? Are you all leveraging Microsoft 365, Adobe, Salesforce? Are there other SaaS vendors that you have that you're using? And while we get some answers there, we can always move forward.
It's like some people are raising their hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Microsoft's a big one. It's a hard one to get away from. So I don't hear of too many customers that aren't using it. Adobe's another pain point, just from being, practitioner. Adobe, getting into the Adobe portal was probably one of the things that I cringed a lot, right? Trying to manage it in there. But keeping it in mind too, these are, when you're talking about Microsoft and Adobe, these are what we call hybrid licenses, meaning that there's a required install that goes along with the SaaS, right? So they consider it a SaaS product, they call it subscription, but usually there's something that you have to download on the device and install. And you really want to be able to understand that whole picture. And so it's really important. That's one of that better together with managing SaaS, where you're also managing your procurement, or where you're also managing your on-premise licenses. So making sure that you get the holistic picture and not just pieces of it.
Yep.
So yeah, perfect. All right.
Yeah. So on this slide here, what we're really showing is the breadth of what we can discover and what we can pull in from a SaaS license management perspective. There's three areas in which we bring in SaaS subscription. On one hand, you have direct integrations. These are integrations that are done between ServiceNow and the vendor themselves through an API pool. So we pull in all the user subscriptions, as well as any of the relevant data that's available in that API for our customers to do any type of compliance or optimization analysis. We like to say that we're covering a large breadth of SaaS publishers, but we know that there's many publishers out there. And so what we've done is, on a quarterly basis, we put out new direct integrations. So what you're seeing today is what we have out of the box. But every quarter, we're pumping out new integrations. In the event that we don't have a direct integration, then there's two ways in which we also help our customers. One is through single sign-on. So we have an integration with Azure as well as Okta, and this gives you visibility into the thousands of SaaS applications that those SSO providers house on their platform, on their system. And so you get the last login information of those subscriptions. So you actually do get a lot of ability to track and manage those SaaS applications through the SSO integration. In the event that you want something that's much more meaningful in terms of the data that I'm getting, not just last logon information, you want that same type of experience as you would from a direct integration, we also have custom integrations. And so this is akin to a direct integration. It allows you to actually build your own direct integration for a publisher that we don't have today out of the box. And so the way that you do this, and we have a slide to show this, is using our Flow Designer tool. You have a nice templatized way of creating your own direct integration, provided that the publisher has an API for you to pull from. And so this is what that looks like today. So again, in the event that we don't have a direct integration and you want to get very deep data around the subscriptions and how the application is being used, you can leverage this feature, which is part of SAM Pro and SAM Enterprise. It's not an additional cost of any sort, and use the Flow Designer tool to create one. And I've seen a lot of customers actually do this And it's very quick to get the return on investment on bringing in those subscriptions. So again, 3 ways you can bring in data: direct integrations, SSO integrations, or building your own.
Yeah. So I like to, one of my account executives, he talks about this specific single sign-on as kind of being that broad net. So when you're trying to capture a lot of information quickly, that single sign-on is going to be that way of capturing it really quickly, right? And again, to what Victor said, it's going to give you last login, but that might be enough, right? That might be enough to get you where you want to go, and get you quickly up to speed. I do like to kind of talk about this because I do have quite a few customers that are dissatisfied with that single sign-on capability. They still leverage this, especially for a lot of the larger vendors, right? Those Microsoft, the Adobe's and things of that nature. But some of those smaller vendors, they just use single sign-on. So it's a quick connection and spitting back information quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Perfect.
Yeah, so this is kind of what you were alluding to, right, Michelle? The level of analysis that we have, right? Level 1 being single sign-on. You're able to look at the top layer level, who's logged in, who hasn't logged in. And you're right, that's in most cases, I would say 70 to 80% of the time, when you want to reclaim licenses for individuals that haven't logged in or haven't used the product, that's really sufficient. That's more than enough because you can drive a lot of savings from that. As you go deeper on the chain, though, you'll see that there is a different level of depth when it comes to what you can analyze. So you can look at more meaningful usage data, for example. An API publisher might have different components of an application that if you use any one of those feature sets or components, it requires a license that's higher than the base license. And so what you can do from an analysis point there is, if I have a product that has different components, but I'm not using those components, I can actually get the opportunity to downgrade some user subscriptions. So a very simple example would be going from an E5 license to an E3 license, right? And having a population of your users that at one point, maybe they required an E5 license, but now they no longer require that, or you're finding that you've oversubscribed users for that license type. There's no need to keep paying for that additional use if they're not using that, right? So those are, again, more optimization, and that's what's coming from those direct integrations or those custom integrations that you build, going from level 1 all the way to those level 5.
Yeah. And with Zoom, just because that's going to be the example, I'll do integration. For those paid Zoom licenses, it's kind of an example of this. Is it'll show when they last hosted a meeting, and then if they haven't hosted a meeting, there's no point in them paying for that paid version of it. So we'll give you the option, or we'll give you the visibility into seeing that, and then you have that option of dropping them down to that free version of Zoom. So that kind of goes hand in hand with the example that I'll show when we go in through the demonstration.
Yeah, one of these optimization use cases that I know customers really like is around Adobe Creative Cloud, where you assign licenses, where customers might be, or end users might be, an all app license, right? Where they are able to use 3 or more Adobe products, but you find in their usage, and the last time they have logged on, they're actually using less than 3. So you're able to downgrade them to 2 single app licenses versus, an all app license, or vice versa. Somebody might have 5 single app licenses when you can give them an all app license that gives them access to 3 or more. So there's many different ways to optimize based on the usage telemetry that you get.
Adobe is a huge one. I hear customers all the time, because Adobe doesn't really expose usage information, right? But that's one way we're helping customers to still be able to optimize out there, even though Adobe is kind of holding out on us and not giving us a lot of that information. You can still optimize, right? Still be able to go in there and either upgrade or downgrade them based on how many apps they're actually using. So, and we keep saying reclaim. So let's give an explanation of what reclaiming a SaaS application might look like. Do you want to take on that on, Victor?
Yeah, so it's basically taking 2 data points. One is all of the software usage and analyzing who your subscribed users are for the application. What are they using? how often are they using it? Maybe when is the last time they've been using it? Or maybe, like I said before, what components of the available product are they accessing? The other then is based on those usage metrics, what are reclamation rules that we can build? Either we have them out of the box or that you can configure based on your own policies or rule sets that track things like total usage time, last use date, user activity, etc. And based on those rules, you're able to assign those rules to the users. And as you are looking at their software usage, you're creating a workflow that says, here are the potential candidates that I have to be reclaimed. Here's a justification why these users should be reclaimed. And then you have the action to then say, yes, go ahead and reclaim it. And you might be reclaiming things because you want to be compliant. So you're uninstalling access to or the software, or you might be looking to be compliant from a reallocation of licenses, or you might be looking to optimize, terminate stale users that either no longer need the license or no longer are part of your organization, or as I mentioned before, downgrading licenses because the user need is just not there to suffice and satisfy the cost that you're spending for a higher license.
All right. I think this is where we're going to jump into a demo. So we did have one quick question, and I'll go ahead and address that really quickly. The question is, with SSO integration, is it typical to get SSO applications mapped to a generic software model, for example, no version or addition? So the beauty of the integrations, when you're doing the integrations, is it's going to create the software models for you. And you'll see that through the direct integration that I'm about to do. The other thing is, when you're thinking about SaaS, you're not purchasing SaaS on an edition, right? Usually when you're going out, you're purchasing it at the newest release. So a SaaS software model should always be generic, unless that specific publisher has some kind of nuance and you're purchasing at a specific version and you need to do the version on the software model. But I would say, let's run through the Zoom integration. I can show you how this works live, and then hopefully that'll help answer any questions, any additional questions you have. And if not, we can take more questions at the end of the call. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, stop sharing my laptop, or excuse me, my PowerPoint. Victor, can you just confirm you can see the integrating with Zoom
Yes,
okay.
we see the product doc.
Perfect. So what I wanted to do, and I'm going to drop this in the chat real quick, if I can move around some of my stuff, but in our documents, we actually have, for the direct integrations, we have step-by-step instructions, right? So in this case, I'm going to do a Zoom integration. What I did drop in the chat is the link to the top of this hierarchy, which is all of our direct integrations that we kind of showed on that PowerPoint that Victor talked through. But we're going to jump through some of the steps that are required within Zoom. I did create a dummy account through Zoom using a dummy email that I have, just to be able to show you what it's going to look like. Of course, keep in mind, this is going to have one account attached to the Zoom, and it is a basic free account. So the purpose of me showing you this is to show you how simple and quick these connections can happen. I get the question all the time, how long does it take to do these direct integrations? And it can take time, depending on the vendor itself and how they publish out their information, how they expose those keys, and ultimately do the connection. But I thought, let's do Zoom, since we're using Zoom as our our platform today. What you'll notice here is, in the Zoom integration, we talk about what you need to do in the actual application. So important thing, you need to make sure you have a Zoom admin. That's part of this. So whoever is an admin to that Zoom account that you have, we want to make sure that they're there and able to help you. This is a good point for you to start finding stakeholders that are looking to drive adoption. Maybe your company is disconnected, right? They don't have a central asset management program, and maybe each department has specific apps that they manage. but you're trying to show value behind ServiceNow, and you're trying to show value behind what you do on a daily basis. So start going out, looking at stakeholders, who's looking to drive savings, maybe who has renewals that are coming up, and then start asking them, will you come in and help me do the setup? And then we can start showing to other teams how we're able to start driving down some of that spend that you have on an annual basis. So what you'll notice here is we give you the link. So you'll go to the Zoom application marketplace, which I've gone ahead and logged into my account here. If you come up here, it's going to tell you to click on build application, which I've already done. You'll want to do admin managed, right? So this is going to be administrative managed. You'll also put in your instance. So you'll want to make sure you put in here, you'll see it gives you the hyperlink. This is where you would put in your instance name. So I've already done that here. And then the last piece of this, we want to make sure we do our scopes. So for sake of time, there were 7 of them. I just went ahead and had this completely set up. So all of these scopes are in play. What this is doing is giving us, access to be able to read what's being used. Like I said, in Zoom, we can find out when they last hosted a meeting. So it's going to be able to expose that usage information, so we can either downgrade them to a free license or reclaim their license if we needed to. So once we have that, we're going to now jump over. And so you can follow along, I've done all of this scoping. Now we're going to go through and create an integration within ServiceNow. So I've jumped into software asset management. There's multiple ways that you can get to this direct integration. The quick and easiest way to do that is come through here and click under the software asset analytics, this little tile here. You'll click on as direct integration. We're going to look for Zoom. We're going to go ahead and hit continue. We're going to cross our fingers that a live demonstration is not going to break on me as we go through it, because we all know what this can feel like. But we're going to do, you always want to make sure you title this really cleanly so you know what you're going to do, because maybe you have multiple Zoom accounts that you're connecting, right? You want to always know which Zoom accounts that are connected and supported. So in this case, I'm just going to use our initials, and I'm just going to say it's a demo. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to pick the client ID. I'm going to put the copy client secret. And then we're going to hit submit. Oh, you know what? What you can do, and we'll just let it go. But what I do want to make sure that you understand is, in this case, you are actually able to go up to 60 days in the past. So whenever I did the integration, I could have chose to go back to May 1st or even towards the end of April. So that way I'm gathering historical data, not just current data, right? That helps you, once the integration is complete, it helps you with the process of going through and identifying those reclaim candidates quicker. Again, being able to start saving day 1 versus having to wait 60 days for the information to come in and start saving then. We're going to hit save. We're going to go ahead and click get authentication token. What you don't see off my screen is it's asking me within Zoom, am I allowing the permissions to for the connection to happen? So I clicked allow. And then what you'll notice is it's going to start going through the process of doing the connection. So you'll see here, the connection is retrieving the data from the communication. It's going to constantly give us updates. We can also see scheduled jobs that have now been created. And then as it goes through, we're going to see job results, and we're going to see that it's going to create our software model. So now it says we have successfully connected to the Zoom Video API. It's going to refresh the subscription users and summary, the data summary. So if I come over here, I can see my scheduled jobs that have completed, when they last completed. And I could also see some, kind of going back to answering that question that was in the Q&A, the software model has been created. So in this case, what you'll notice is it's a Zoom video communication, right? And it has basic after it. Basic is that free version of Zoom. That's what I guess they title it, and that's how it comes through. There is, I think, a corporate edition of this software model that will be created for anything that's paid licenses. So since mine, again, it's just a free license, it only created that one software model to not ultimately have information and too much data in your environment that you don't need. So if you don't have those corporate or paid licenses, you wouldn't see that software model, versus if you did, you would see both software models. So we can come here again, see that software model. The other thing that it creates with this is a reclaim rule. So if I come into the administration and I go into Zoom, or I search for Zoom, it went ahead and created a reclaim rule. So very similar to what Victor was saying, where we want to go out and identify who's not using things, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that we reclaim the software. Here you can see this rule has been created. It says last threshold is 60 days. We want to make sure that we update this to whatever your standard is. So if you say that you don't want, if they're not using this product within the last 30 days, you can set that to 30, 180. You can adjust this as needed. I'm going to leave it at 60. The other option that you have here is to notify your users. So if you want to notify them prior to ultimately reclaiming it, right, and give them the option to come back and say, no, I need this software, because if you notify them, they do get that option out of the box, which you can ultimately choose not to show that as well. But you can give them the option to ultimately keep the software. You close that task will be closed, and I'll show you what the task looks like here in a minute. But once that's been closed, it becomes historical information. So maybe this person continues to say that they need this software over time. It's still auditable. You're able to go back into your records and see for the last 6 months or last year, Sally, in this example, said that she needed this software, but we're constantly seeing she's never using it. So at that point, it's either one of two things. Either the connection's not working as it should be working, or Sally's lying, right? So we would want to start investigating at that point. The other option we've given you, and this has come out within I would say the last two versions, is subscription conditions. So you have the ability to come in here and identify your VIP, right? There's a check mark, there's a user field, or there's a field under the users labeled VIP. So those would be like your C-level executives, maybe, or maybe somebody that you never want to continue to let them know that you want to reclaim their software. Maybe it's your manager that signs your checks on a daily rate, whatever that ends up being. But you have the ability to identify those, and it's not going to create reclaim rules for them, right? So it makes sure that they stay off of this list. The other thing, let's go into the software model real quick. I'm sorry, let me go back into the workspaces. I'm just going to leave that. If we go into the software model here, what you'll notice is it's going to tell us that we need to create entitlements. So entitlements is that other side of the coin, right? So we know what we're using, that's the head side, and then the tail side is what did we pay for? So you want to make sure that you're creating your entitlements, right? Making sure that you're getting the holistic picture so that you can make sure you are buying what you need, and then ultimately going through and negotiating your contracts when they come up if you're overbuying what you need. And so there's multiple ways you can create the entitlements. It gives you the ability to come in here and manually create it using the form process, or you do have the ability to come in here as well and create entitlements. And there's a playbook where it can walk you step by step through creating an entitlement. You can do an Excel import, and then the standard form, right? So that's the other piece that we need to ultimately make sure that we have. And then when we have all of this together, it's on a weekly basis, we run reconciliation, which gives you the ability to come in and see where you stand, right? Since I just created this integration, reconciliation hasn't run because it's on a weekly basis, but you do have the ability to come in here once the entitlements are created, click run reconciliation, and then you're going to see a Zoom tile come up. I'm not going to do it just for sake of time because I would have to run reconciliation on all my publishers since it's a new publisher coming in. But it'll give you the information. It'll show where you compliant or not compliant. So I'll use Adobe as a kind of an example of this. So here, Adobe has many different products. In my case, what we would see is Zoom. We'd see the Zoom Basic, and then I would see where we have one subscription that's out there, being used. And then depending on how many entitlements we bought over time, I would see that. I could see all my entitlements here. I could see all of my details of what's been used and what hasn't been used. I'm going to also use Adobe as an example, since we don't on the Zoom account. I just created a dummy account. We're not going to have any removal candidates, but so that you can see what a removal candidate looks like. In this case, the removal candidate would be a low usage because that's how it was set up for 60 days. And this would be a removal candidate example where it's going to come in. This is going to automatically assign to my software managers. If you wanted it assigned to an individual, you could do that as well. It shows that it's low usage. I can see who my user is. In this case, we're notifying them 3 days before reclaiming. And then I have the ability to go ahead and hit reclaim. So once I hit reclaim on the Zoom account, right, depending on the connection that you have and what that other third-party vendor allows us to do, but on Zoom, it actually allows us to go out and reclaim that admin account or that the paid account. And when you reclaim it, it's going to drop them down to that free account automatically, right? So you have the ability to hit reclaim. Our workflow on the back end is going to go to the out to the Zoom portal, reclaim that license, and then it's also going to reclaim it within ServiceNow. So that way you're compliant and the look and feel on both your portal and in ServiceNow are the same. I do have customers that are to the point where they don't want to come in here and do task management. They have sat and babysat. I like to use the word babysat. They babysat this reclaim rule, right, to make sure it's doing what you wanted it to do. Automation, bad automation is going to lead you down a bad path. So I always say, set it up, watch it, make sure it's doing what you expect it to do, what you want it to do, and then work to automation. So I do have customers that ultimately do not hit reclaim. Once the process, once the notification has been sent out, 3 days later, it's going to automatically reclaim this license and put it back into their instance. So that's connecting it. That's showing the software model is automatically generated. We're also automatically generating the reclaim rule. And then we're going to give you the ability to go in and identify potential saving opportunities, right? The last thing I do want to show, because as you grow over time, you're going to have a lot of SaaS. We talked about this. Victor said, direction is SaaS, right? Everybody's moving in that direction. We're not going backwards. And so when we got a lot of SaaS coming in, we want to start identifying not only how can we reclaim one-off licenses, but how can we maybe get rid of some of that sprawl out there? So overlapping usage dashboard is something I was really excited about whenever it came out. But this gives you the ability to start identifying any SaaS that's out there that's overlapping, right? The one example I like to use in my instance is the project management. So here I can see I have 3 different project management tools. I can see all my subscriptions, but I can see my overall usage, right, in percentage. If I go and I drill into it even further and I start looking at the application usage around it, I'm going to be able to start identifying what they're actually using. So this goes into kind of what Victor was saying around the capabilities when you start diving further in. So here, Workfront, we can see, somebody added comments, they created tasks, or Smart Sheets, they uploaded a sheet, updated data sheet, different functionality that you can see. And you can actually see which departments are least using it, right? Who hasn't adopted this specific software. But just at a glance, if I just looked at my overall usage, I would say the Workfront is probably the one I would look at removing, just because 7% of the company actually using it. Does that make sense, right? Does it make sense to continue to pay that $709,000 on an annual basis? So if I see that this renewal is coming up, at this point, I might take work with a project management team outside of ITAM, right? Something on a larger scale, and start seeing how we can drive adoption, start driving adoption to the other two products. So being able to say, let's move them over to Smartsheets or Monday.com. So that's just, again, as you mature on the platform, this is how you can start maturing and, again, additionally driving savings around your software. So that's going to end my demonstration. So let me get my slides back up. Victor, while I'm getting my slides back up, are there any questions out there that we want to jump through?
Yeah, I saw a question on does the SaaS create all the sub-Adobe models by the URL provided? So if I were to interpret the question, and Ernesto, feel free to clarify if I didn't capture it, but as we're pulling in subscriptions through the Adobe API, every unique subscription has what they call a subscription ID. And based on that subscription ID, we map that to a software model. So in short, the answer is yes. We're able to determine through the user subscriptions what are the unique Adobe products and therefore the unique Adobe software models that need to be tracked and managed within SaaS license management. And the same is true for any SaaS vendor that we're pulling in. We map the subscription IDs to those models. Great. I'm glad I answered that. The last thing I was going to say on your demo there, Michelle, was when you were showing the overlapping software. The cool thing about that is just one way, and you don't have to bring it up, but that's just one way of getting into that conversation of app rationalization, right? So as you mature in the SAM discipline, from visibility to compliance to optimization, now part of that journey, part of that story is how do we rationalize the applications that we are using, right? And so this is a nice segue into app portfolio management, right? Another solution that ServiceNow has where you can do enterprise architecture, data analytics based on the information that's coming in through SAM. So just a plug for that, but that's where this data can live and reside and grow with your SAM program.
Good point. Okay.
There was a question on how do we do this? The stuff that we're showing there, that's a feature, Ernesto, called overlapping usage. It's a feature within software asset management. There is a widget on the module. There's a module that you can click on the left-hand side and start looking into that. I believe it came out in Vancouver. So if you're on Vancouver, you should have access to that.
Point. All right. So Victor, what about those ones SaaS, SaaS ID that we don't know about, right?
That's right.
Shadow IT, those things that are being purchased outside of our know. How do we solve for that?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? So everything that we've talked to up until now has been, I know that this application lives in my environment. I know that it's out there, so I want to track it. I'm going to set up a direct integration or use SSO integration. But for the things that you don't know, you want to be able to manage that and have visibility, because as this slide is showing, the sprawl of SaaS is ever growing, right? It's something that proliferates in the environment. And unless you have good ways of detecting that, you might be on the hook with having to spend for subscriptions that you don't know about, or any other risk that is associated to bringing in other subscription data, right? So there's two ways that ServiceNow answers this question. And if we move to the next slide, I'll talk about the first way. The first way is what we call software spend detection. And here the key word is financial transactions. We ingest financial transactions, and based on the financial transactions, we use predictive analytics to surface to a SAM manager what might be spent on a SaaS subscription by leveraging, I think there's three key pieces of data: vendor, general ledger, and transaction detail. But when you ingest the financial transactions, we can look at those transactions and say, hey, you have spend in these product areas that are related to SaaS. And that gives you visibility into what might be purchased on a corporate credit card that that might be purchased outside of central procurement centers, or just by not having something central to manage all of the spend. So this is one way, right, of detecting what is being spent on by leveraging financial transactions. The second way of understanding what might be out there that you don't know about is through a browser extension discovery. And this is what we call SAS Detection. This is a better together story between SAM and our DEX solution. And by leveraging that, you are able to monitor the traffic of what is being accessed through different URLs, right? So what you see here in the middle of the screen on the left is a report that shows all the URLs, what are the SaaS vendors, what's the uptime, and who are the users that might be accessing that application. Oftentimes, these are freemium software packages, but those freemium software packages might end the trial license, and then you're hooked on having to spend the monthly spend on those licenses, right? So two ways of detecting software you don't know about. One is analyzing financial transactions. The other is monitoring traffic from a URL browser standpoint. And again, for this, you would need the DEX solution to assist in the browser piece.
All right. So with that,
there was a question. How does the browser extension detect a website visited versus it is an actual software product? Yeah, it looks at the actual activity taking place in the browser, right? So if you are accessing Miro, for example, it might detect that there was a log on, somebody logged in. It might detect that you're actually, working on activities within the solution. Okay.
yeah, I think it's doing some learning capabilities, right? Where it's actually learning what's actually a software, like that they're logging in, like you said, Mural or Miro, right? Versus just them going to google.com, right? So there is some capabilities that's built into the product to really recognize that. So you're not going to get spammed with a whole bunch of websites.
Of course. Yeah. So it's doing something with it's tracking against and checking against our content library is another way of answering that question too.
Good questions, guys. Appreciate them. So next steps, right? These are some of the challenges that we're going to kind of put back to y'all. But if you're currently using SAM today, right, then take a look at what your SaaS renewals are that are coming up. And I think I said this as an example earlier. Anything that's coming up for renewal is a great way to go out. Again, you're able, in most cases, those direct integrations, you can go back in history. So maybe pull in 60 days worth of information. If you want to identify somebody hasn't used it in the last 30 days, start using that information and then negotiate your contracts whenever they come up for renewal. Work with your procurement team to start understanding what's out there. That's another good way of identifying things that are being purchased that maybe you don't know about, but procurement does. Because 9 times out of 10, they're going to procurement to get access to that, or they're using a P card or, a credit card of some kind that's going on a general ledger that maybe your finance team is just aware of, but they haven't brought it to your attention, right? Get procurement on your side. Procurement is going to be extremely helpful when you're trying to get processes in place. And then document that. Document it as a win. As you document those wins, it becomes easier to get other stakeholders involved and continue to grow in the right direction. The other piece to that is start with your top 10. Maybe you don't have any renewals coming up, right? But you have high spends out there. And we took a look at it. What was it? Microsoft or Adobe, Salesforce, I think were the top 3, right? So kind of within lines with that, what are your top 10 spends? And start looking at bringing those integrations in, getting those reclaim rules in, and start seeing where you can start driving, lowering your costs. And a lot of customers will be like, well, it's not time to negotiate. I'm already in a contract. Where we're going to help you start saving is now you're not going out and buying new, right? you have a pool of licenses that you can assign to new users, new employees that are onboarding. You're not going out and doing true ups. You're not going out and buying more licenses in between your contracts. Use those pre-built connectors. So similar to that direct connection that I showed you earlier, look at the SSO integrations. Can you, cast that broad net, get a lot of SSOs in? And then that third option that Victor walked us through and connecting through their open API. So that's kind of our call to action, if you want to say that, but really going out and starting getting your feet wet and getting those integrations in. So when we talk about this next session, again, here's a QR code if you want to go ahead and register for that session. But we'll really dive into a new feature. I think it was released in Vancouver. Victor, keep me honest, but the indoor mapping within hardware asset management, right? So being able to see where those assets are on a map, on a visual. I've been speaking with one customer pretty recently that they're looking to actually drive this specifically for their access points. They have a hard time tracking where their access points are within the building. They have buildings throughout the world. So they're going to use this to track the life cycle and the location of the access point. So that's just one of their kind of use cases, but I found it really unique, right? And being able to, some of those items that are stale, right? Like your data center equipment, being able to see, what room it's in, maybe identifying some racks, things of that nature, and really build that out within a map view. So I'm excited to get this one underway. I think Rich and I are both really excited, but this will be our next session. And then looking at a few sessions in the future, we're going to have one around security and asset management, so that better together with our SecOps team. We're also going to have one with APM, so better together with APM. So Victor, I think you kind of mentioned it in that driving the adoption around overlapping SaaS, right? So we'll kind of probably hit on that a little bit of how you can take, okay, well, it's overlapping, but now how do I drive that into a project, and work through that. APM's that other piece to the puzzle. So those are a few topics that are coming out. Again, take a screenshot. I'll share this deck outside of this call, along with the recording, probably within the next day or two, and then you can go ahead and use it from the deck as well. All right, so at this point, we're going to turn off the recording. I'm going to stop sharing real quick. And then I'm going to turn off the recording.